everybody, welcome back to our channel. Taylor Parnell here, and I'm so excited for today's video because today we're going to be talking about 3 things you should avoid when using an e-collar. So if you're excited for today's video, make sure you give it a big thumbs up like usual. It really does support our channel. It means so much to us if you'll do that. Also subscribe down below and turn on those bell notifications. Why? Because you're going to know when every single video is coming out so that you can get more access to that. Last but not least, drop in the comments something, where you guys are from, how'd you find us? We're just so happy to have you all here. Let's get into today's video. So tip number 1 for you guys, I really want you to realize is that you don't want your dog to fear the remote. Now remember, this e-collar is to help with communication, right? So you have your beep mode that's going to help encourage that communication for your dog to know it's doing something right? But we also have that corrective side, which is super important. Why? Is because sometimes with that corrective side, if you overuse it or your dog understands that the electric shock or the vibrate, those kind of, recorrective moments are going to be related to this remote. Every time they see this remote, they might kind of feel like, oh, I'm afraid, I fear it. So that's a very big tip for you guys is when you're using an e-collar, you don't want your dogs to fear the remote. You don't want your dogs to fear anything about it. And what's super important is you want to incorporate it with playtime, okay? That's something that's gonna really, really help your dogs to be excited when they see this device. And if that's something that you guys aren't ready for yet, you can always keep your remote behind you or in your pocket, kind of out of the way. But a great thing is just like I said before, don't overdo it, take your time with it. And what's super important is have that extra encouragement, whether it's treats or, throwing the ball, things that your dogs love, and you'll learn as you're starting to use it more with your dogs what's exciting them. It's not always training. You want to do a little bit of training and a little bit of play in between one so that they'll learn to enjoy the collar. Let's get into step 2. Alrighty, you guys, so tip number 2 is going to be do not use that corrective method excessively. What do I mean by that? Well, if you are new here, welcome again. But in these videos, we are teaching you guys how to recall your dog, how to train your dog using the e-collar. Now, what's super important here? As you guys are training your dogs, we have a corrective method, right? We want to use that vibrator shock as a corrective method because your dog is doing a bad behavior. Now remember, when your dog is doing that bad behavior, you've decided to choose on the scale where your dog is. What does that mean for you newbies? What it means is the vibrate goes up to 16 levels and the shock goes up to 99 levels. You can, and I do recommend that you try it on yourself first. See how it feels before you use it on your dog babies. And when you are going to use it on them, you're going to use it to see what their level of communication is at, right? The beep is a positive reinforcement, just like those treats. The vibrate and the shock, it's a little bit different simply because we're trying to correct that bad behavior. So I highly recommend to you guys, also in previous videos, that I want you guys to be using that corrective behavior when they're doing that bad behavior. But when you're starting from the beginning, you need to figure out which level they're at, right? So in order to not use this remote excessively and to beep, 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 or to vibrate, vibrate, or to shock, it's to figure out what level they need, right? So what do I mean by that? Just to recap for you guys in this video, all I want you to do is when your dog is doing that bad behavior, choose whether you're going to use the vibrator shock and you're going to start at that lower level. If your dog does not actually turn and look at you when you're using that corrective method, it means it's not high enough. So when you get to that level and your dog is actually turning towards you and you know that it's effective enough, that's when you're going to be using the remote properly. And then when you're going to be clicking that button once, you're going to be able to see that your dog is going to be listening to you. If your dog is not listening to you, that's no big deal. Remember, everything is patience. You want to take it step by step with your dog. And sometimes it's just a miscommunication. They don't understand what you're asking. So practice is key. Don't overdo it. Make your session short so that as you're going it through with your dog, you'll be able to better understand not only what is a bad behavior with them, but what is a good one. Let's go get into step number 3. Alrighty guys, so tip number 3 that I have for you today, and if you want more tips, drop in the comments because I love doing this for you guys. The last tip today is going to be, do not assume that this collar is going to do all the necessary work for you, okay? You have to make sure, and again, this was on a previous video, so you should be watching your training videos. You have to make sure that you attach the actual good positive reinforcement with that beep and the bad negative bad behaviors with a command, okay? You can't just beep and click and just assume that everything is gonna make sense and the dog's gonna connect all the dots and everything's gonna go great, right? Every dog is different. That's why we find out what problems your dog has just by letting them be a dog, correct? This is when we're gonna give them that freedom of the off leash. However, I want you guys to attach what you're communicating with your dog on the remote with the command itself. So just for example for you guys, when it's a bad behavior, okay? When you're saying no, right? Let's say you're using the shock or the vibrate, right? Those are those bad behavior buttons that we are using here. And if you're using something different, feel free to drop in the comments. We'll help you out directly. But what's super important is when I'm using that vibrate or shock, because they're doing a bad behavior that I don't like, I'm saying no. Not only am I using a verbal attachment to the bad behavior, but I'm also maybe gonna shake my fingers in front, or maybe I'm gonna stomp. You wanna use all your body language, your verbal, all the cues that you can to make sure that it's effective. And again, like I've said before to you guys, once you decide it's something, you stick with it. Patience is key, but sticking with that is so, so important. So again, I hope these 3 tips are going to help you guys to better not only communicate with your dog, but understand that these are the 3 things to avoid when using a shock collar. And if there's something that you guys aren't understanding with the e-collar, or there's maybe something that's not making sense with the dogs, or you know, there's something confusing for you, never hesitate to reach out to us. We're here to serve you guys. We want you to not only get the best product that you can out there, but we also want you guys to get the best experience possible so that we can have more free dogs out there in the world. So thank you again for tuning in. Make sure, like usual, you give this video a big thumbs up. You're subscribed to the channel down below. All those bell notifications are turned on so that you never miss a video with us. Thank you again for tuning in and of course, trusting in our product. We'll see you on the next video. Bye guys.